Welcome back to Franco Fridays. Today I've got a film from 1982, and that is Cecilia, The Diary of a Desperate Housewife, also known in Europe as The Sexual Aberrations of a Housewife. The film stars Muriel Montassi, French actress, beautiful, beautiful actress. She plays a housewife, a very rich, bored housewife that's gone through a sexual awakening as a result of a rape at the start of the film. So right off the get-go, you've got political correctness gone amok. Rape is not something that we would typically look at as something that would be an awakening in a good way, in a positive sense for the female species, but leave it to Franco to touch this one. Through this sexual awakening, she and her husband end up having all kinds of triasts, including with Lena Remay and multiple people, orgies, LSD, drug-infused type scenes. At the time, I think this film, in the late 70s, early 80s, the proliferation of drugs, and particularly experimentation with LSD, was pretty prominent. And Franco even talks about that in Rome, he was invited to a lot of parties that were LSD type parties, and including one with Sergio Leone. Who knows if all that's true or not? But essentially, that's the film. It's one woman's awakening and experimentation with drugs, and all the things that come along with that. It's an interesting film, and it's certainly not just what I'd call an after-hours Cinemax softcore porn film. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. A lot of the scenes are shot with a soft lens. It's very dreamlike, which we're used to seeing in a Franco film. It's shot in Portugal. On location in Portugal. Beautiful, beautiful house that apparently was built by the King and Queen of Portugal for Captain Hook. This castle mansion that was used in the film is just stunning to look at. There's a beautiful scene where a naked woman is riding horseback along the beach. The music in this is by Daniel White, and again, it's although the first portion of the film with the music has kind of your Casio keyboard intros, which I didn't think it was. I thought it was pretty mundane, but later in the film we get back to some really, really good, soft, sexy jazz music that Daniel White and Franco are great at. So the music is a great compliment to the film. Lena Remay is in this. She is wears a blonde wig, and she's part of these sexual escapades and orgies. She even has the script says that there's a sexual scene with Cecilia's 16-year-old brother between him and Lena Remay. I mean, you would have to take their word for it because he looks much older than 16, but you get the idea. They're basically in this film covering every taboo you can think of is covered in this film. But it's not gratuitous. It's not one of these gynecologically close-up shots. In fact, I think Franco really is very restrained in his use of the close-up and zoom in this thing. Everything is shot very soft, and you don't get any of the gynecological stuff that you might typically see in some of his films. I'll be honest about this one. The storyline is pretty thin, and you're looking at a film that's an hour and 44 minutes, and there's just not a whole lot of meat on the bones. I think the idea of the initial concept of a housewife that's through rape has a sexual awakening, and then you amplify that with drugs and what happens to that is an interesting storyline. But that's I don't know that it's enough to carry an hour and 44-minute film. So that's I thought it was maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes too long. I mean, we got the point. It's just a series of sexual escapades, and then I think the wife apparently, comes to her senses towards the end. Oliver, this is an interesting one from my perspective because Oliver Mathot, who is a French actor, has a lot of French acting credits. He actually has a director credit on this, dual director credit with Franco. Although I don't know what his contribution is, and in the extras, there's a 17-minute interview with Franco where he really doesn't speak to that at all. So it's hard to say what, if anything, Oliver Mathot's role was from a director standpoint. I give this film a 6 out of 10. I think it's for Franco fanatics only. It's not a bad film, but it's just not a film with a lot of substance from a plot and storyline. And really, the concepts, the taboos that we're talking about in this film, the subject matter we're talking about, it's really kind of surface level stuff. It doesn't go deep beyond just kind of a setup for a lot of sex scenes. So I mean, it's the subject matter is very meaty, and you probably could have done a lot with that, but it doesn't try to take this thing any deeper than the surface as far as the storyline. So the picture quality is fantastic. It's a rescan remaster from the original negative. It is a DVD though; it's not a Blu-ray. And the sound is fantastic. Daniel White's music is fantastic in this, with the exception, I don't think the initial scenes with this Casio music, keyboard type music, was particularly interesting or inspiring. But the jazz scores in the latter half of the film were fantastic. So I think that's going to kind of wrap up my thoughts on Cecilia. It's probably a pass for most casual fans, but for the hardcore Franco fans like myself, I would say you definitely need to see it. And it's an interesting exploration into some taboo subjects, including the impact of drug use, LSD particularly. But I still think it's probably just a 6 out of 10 at the end of the day. So that's going to wrap up my review of Cecilia, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks.